Well, welcome to today's episode of Wesley Live. I am so excited to have Pastor Lenae Ross with us today from Annapolis, Maryland. Pastor Ross, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Joel. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. It's one of the neatest parts about doing these Wesley Lives has been journeying around the country via Zoom and to head out to the East Coast today. I'm so excited. And so correct me if I'm wrong, you're in Annapolis, Maryland now, but via Facebook, I looked up, you're from California originally. Is that correct?
I am from California. I grew up in a few different places in Northern California. Joined the Air Force shortly after I graduated from high school, and that's where I met my husband. And so we've been all over.
Wow. Wow. So, kind of tell us what you're doing in Annapolis. What brought you there? I know through the Air Force, but what is God doing in you and through you there in Maryland?
Well, it's my husband's Air Force assignment that brought us to Maryland. So we've been here for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
But we've been here in Annapolis since last September. And my district approached me. They know that I have a call to plant churches. And I was coming from a church plant that I helped to launch 4 years ago. Yeah, it was 4 years ago. So just in the process of discernment, I was the person that came to mind to plant this new church in our state capital. And after a time of prayer, we really love Annapolis and felt a strong sense of calling here. So that's
Wow.
how we got here.
Very cool. So you did a previous church plant prior to this.
Yeah.
So walk us through that. What for someone that's thinking about considering a church plant, they're praying about it, they feel like God's put that on their heart. What are some of the most challenging aspects of that, but some of the most rewarding aspects too?
Well, when the church plant was announced at the sending church that sent out their youth pastor to plant it, I was at an annual meeting and I was sitting there in the congregation, and I just knew right away that I wanted to be a part of it. So I felt a call to ministry, but not to church planting at that time. And it was actually my first class after Pastor Church and World, but my first core class at Wesley was the missional church. And I just devoured everything we were reading about, talking about, writing about, and that really fanned that spark into a flame that this was really where my passion is how God is growing the church in all sorts of ways. Just being a part of that experience church planting is exciting. You know, there's something unparalleled and unique about building something from the ground up, and that's really fun. It's dynamic. It's constantly shifting, which is exciting, but also really challenging. It's not, there are ebbs and flows and seasons in church planting, just like in any other ministry and congregational life. So I would say probably the most challenging part of church planting is not to get too comfortable. What leads us often into church planting is that curiosity about what God is doing, that new thing, and how God is leading. So to maintain that curiosity. And again, that's something that's not unique just to church planting. That's any ministry. And the most fun part is just seeing how God grows this thing, to have been a part of that process from the very beginning when it was just a vision and a dream and a prayer, and to be able to look at the congregation that exists now and the people that have been baptized and discipled. And it's an amazing experience.
Wow. I so admire your faith and your courage to be able to do that. And it's just such an inspiration to me. And I know a lot of people as well. So thank you for that. And now we've had this little bump in the road here called COVID-19.
Yeah.
Has that impacted your plans or your timeline there as you're planting that church? And
yeah, it's completely impacted. So I was approached last summer about coming to Annapolis, which is, I don't know the mileage, but it's about 50 minutes from the church plant where I was on staff. And we began meeting last fall with my core launch team. We were just making connections in the community and getting to know our neighbors. And we were supposed to publicly launch on Easter Sunday.
Oh, wow. Oh, that perfect day to launch.
A little
Yeah.
rush. Just like everyone, what's been interesting is because I have this big, somewhat personal plan that I was moving toward. I was feeling in a very, internal way, this disruption, but I wasn't doing it alone. Everyone around me was also dealing and is dealing with disruption. But at the same time, since I was already in the process of, again, that discernment and that curiosity, I was like, all right, well, let's just keep going. Yeah. So we're still gathering, just like many of our brothers and sisters around the world. We're meeting online and we're connecting virtually right now.
Wow. You would be well prepared to teach a course, I think, at Wesley Seminary after this, how to handle a pandemic. Or
Right.
So thinking about that, obviously you're an alum of Wesley Seminary. We're very proud of you and proud of what you're doing, and couldn't be prouder. So if someone was watching this and they were considering a degree from Wesley, what advice would you give them? Good, bad, encouragement, discouragement? What would you say to that person?
Well, I would definitely encourage them, to consider Wesley. I was looking for a program like Wesley, but I didn't know it until I stumbled upon their website. And my experience was so rich. The relationships that I built, both with my professors and the other faculty, and with my classmates, it was just fantastic and phenomenal. And it's challenging. It's absolutely rigorous. So I would tell someone, you're signing on for a crucible for sure, but one that will transform you in the very best way.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, I'm honored to say I was at your consecration service and graduation, and obviously I wasn't there for all the late nights and all the long studying and reading that you did, but was so honored to just be a part of that celebration. And we're thinking of those students that were supposed to have graduated and had their consecration service just this last weekend and weren't able to, but been delayed hopefully till August. So just, trusting in God right now and seeing what his timing will be. So is there anything else that you'd want to share just from your heart or from those watching, for those watching, about your experience in church planting or in the ministry, or just in general?
Well, as a church planter, as I've alluded to, it's been interesting. I feel like, especially in ministry, that the whole world's been invited into this space that I feel that I occupy most of the time. That wondering, that searching, and I don't mean that to say that this has been easy for me, or I certainly don't have answers. I'm lumped in there with everyone else with all the uncertainty. But as someone who does kind of hang out in this zone, I'd encourage my fellow clergy and really just, all followers, to allow themselves to feel the feelings, and really just be very open to how God is leading. Our district superintendent, I'm part of the Church of the Nazarene, and my district superintendent has been talking a lot about just the idea of this new normal that we're moving into. I hear a lot of people talking about getting back to normal, but I think that the longer we press into this, the more that we realize that this is really new territory that God is calling us into, and it's horribly uncomfortable and scary in a lot of ways, but God is with us, and that's what I'd want to encourage people, that even in the absence of a lot of clarity and certainty and answers, that God is with us and his plans are good.
Amen. My friend Dr. Luigi Peñaranda termed it holy disruption.
Yes,
that's been something I've really been thinking a lot about lately. And so, Pastor Lenae, thank you so much for your time. Like I said, we're so proud of what you're doing there and praying for you. And if there's anything that we can do, please let us know. And just thank you for coming on, sharing your heart and a little bit of your story with us today.
Yeah, appreciate absolutely. That. Thanks, Joel.
You're welcome. And remember, Pastor Lenae, you watching, we are Wesley, and you belong here. Thank you so much. Blessings.
Thanks.